Hi, everyone. So it's 5 minutes past the hour. So we're going to get started. Thank you all for being here on a Friday afternoon. This is Sustainability at Broad's Earth Week final event for the week. And so today we have Andrew Brousseau. He's the Compost Operations Manager for Black Earth Compost, and he has been since October of 2012. He received his Bachelor's of Science in Earth Systems from the University of Massachusetts in 2007. And today he's going to talk about organic waste management on a global scale. So take it away, Andrew.
Okay. Hello, everyone. My name is Andrew Brousseau. I am an owner of Black Earth Compost. Yep, I've been with the company since 2012. Before this, I was in a master's program for organic waste management and at the University of Washington. And before that, I was working as an oceanographer for some British ships, just doing chemical analysis of the ocean. But my real background is Earth systems and just studying basically the planet and how it evolved. And that's what led me into composting. So, and I can talk about a number of things today, like how to backyard compost, how to curbside compost with Black Earth, what we do in Massachusetts. But just wanted to talk about why I ended up in composting. And it's basically that I wanted to study the flow of nutrients through the human system, like the human society, across continents and everything. Like my big watershed moment was when I realized that phosphorus is a mined product, because I realized that phosphorus doesn't circulate through the atmosphere. So how does it get from the ocean back to the land? Well, not in the air, except from birds. And so I was like, all right, where's phosphorus come from? All right, it's mined. Okay. And then I started looking more into it and I realized that we don't recycle it really. So essentially we mine phosphorus, nitrogen, potassium. Nitrogen we mine from the atmosphere. Potassium we mine from rock. Phosphorus we mine from rock. Calcium we mine from rock. Sulfur is mined. It's mostly a byproduct from petroleum extraction. So all these nutrients that we use for plants, we mine, and then we use them on the farm field. Most of them are lost to the ground or groundwater. Some of it ends up in the crop, and then it ends up in the food, and then we eat it, and then we either discard it and goes to the landfill, or we excrete it and goes to the wastewater treatment plant, where it's like kind of barely recycled. And so then when next growing season, when we need more plant nutrients, we have to go back to that mine in Africa, for example, or Florida to get phosphorus. And so, I mean, obviously long term, that's not going to work. If you're thinking about sustainability over the 100, 200 year, 500 year, whatever you want to think about, like at some point, we need to start setting up systems to recirculate those nutrients back to grow food. And so that's how I ended up at composting. It is a way to, and that's what we do with Black Earth. So we collect food scraps from homeowners and we turn it into compost where it can then be used back either for homeowners to grow food or for farms to grow food in Massachusetts. So that's like the big picture stuff. And if anyone's interested, I think we have an hour and a half, which is quite a bit of time. And I can definitely fill it up with lots of stuff. And you guys can ask questions at any point. I don't know if you guys have to ask it through the chat. But I could show you, I could go into more detail about like the fertilizer trade and that. Yeah. So like long term, we want to, recirculate those nutrients back. Why don't we like dwell on that a little bit? Maybe I can pull up some stuff to show you. And like I said, I'll talk to you about backyard composting. I'll talk to you about what we do with Black Earth. How about I share my screen and I can show you a video. I just sealed the last bag that we purchased in 2013. I've been trying to like slowly put them into the pallets for 6 years.
Wow.
And then I found 4 more cases at my mom's house.
What?
Under the deck.
Get out of town.
Yeah.
You're not serious.
I'm serious. So that's the last one.
Okay,
So it's got the solar panels, the truck, Mahaffey farm.
Nice.
It's got everything you need.
How do you have electricity?
Solar panels. So we deliver compost bulk, we deliver it in bags, and we also sell raised bed kits. So that's it's all geared around getting people to grow food at home. We deliver all over. And so we have a site here in Manchester, and we have another site here in Groton, Mass, that we just opened up. And so that enables us to then deliver compost to this area, which is great. Because before we're driving trucks far, well, we wouldn't drive out this far, but so just looking at the map, like we are able to now collect food scraps from this whole area and bring them back here to be turned into compost, and then we send them back out. Are you guys able to see my mouse?
Yes.
Okay. And then, so we also have a site in Manchester, Mass. So we collect food scraps from this whole area and we bring them back here. We also bring it to other compost sites in the areas that we don't run. And then we deliver compost back out. Let's see. And so something else. So on the collection side of what we do, so we basically, so you eat, you sort your food scraps into your countertop bin, and these green liners are compostable, and we deliver them to your house when you order them. And then you put all that into your curbside bin, which we pick up weekly. And then we turn it into compost. Obviously, there's a lot going on in between here and here. And then we sell it in bags or in bulk to grow new food. And so you can see how this is a circle, but otherwise, you like if we're not recycling it, then you have like the phosphorus and fertilizer mines over here, which are going into here, you know, and then you eat, you put it in your trash, and then it goes to the landfill. So it ends up being a one-way street. And I have some more diagrams on that, but I just want to show you this. So you can put in your address. Let's say, I don't know, School Street in, I don't even know, Everett. Okay, so we're not there yet, but what you can do is pre-register. And then when we get enough people there, we'll then we'll contact everyone and say, hey, we're starting a service, and it's going to be $3.85 per week, and we'll pick up every week. And then, but in another town, like where we already are, it says, all right, here's your options. So this is your best one, $100 for 6 months. And the way we have it set up is once you get enough people in your town, like 300 people in Reading, for example, then we drop the price to $70 every 6 months. So we're trying to set up the system to make it more and more affordable. And that's something else I didn't talk about, is like the business side of what we do. But the goal is really to deliver a service at the lowest price possible. And so that enables more people to it, you know, it's the opposite of turning things into a luxury. It's making it more available to more people. And that's really the goal, because our goal is to collect the food scraps. And if it's cheaper, then more residents can do it. And then the price goes down even more. And then it's even cheaper, and then more people do it. So
So
that's
Andrew,
like,
that's kind of addressing, just to jump in, that's kind of like directly addressing a question we have in the Q&A, which is how can we increase the uptake of composting and make it accessible? And it sounds like you're addressing that in one way by just the more people you have, the less the less the operating costs are for handling pickup from an area.
yep. And that's because of the density so if our truck has to pick up, 300 bins, but each bin is on a different street, then that is going to take more time than if we're picking 300 bins up and like there's 5 per street. So we pass those cost savings on. And so like services like that, we don't want them to be a luxury. We don't want it just to be available to upper class people. We want it to be available to everyone if we're gonna, make an impact. But, things like this, we started just as a more expensive service, like starting things as a high-end service, and like having wealthier people support it enables things to get off the ground, and then get going to where we can lower the price. Okay, I don't want to. So let's go look at. I'm gonna screen share again. I am going to. Right. Okay. Screen share. Okay, do the whole thing, the whole shebang. Okay. So just talking about phosphorus. So this is a really great graphic. So this is, can you see this?
Yes.
So this is how many million tons per year of phosphorus we need, going from 1800 all the way to 2010. So brown is like how much is supplied by phosphate rock. Red is by guano, which is bat poop, and like bird poop. And you can see that that was a significant source in the 1800s, but then it's been petering out. Yellow is human excreta, so what you get out of the wastewater treatment plant. And green is like animal manure. So what happened in the 1970s was the green revolution, quote unquote, where we were able to like, there was a lot of like science advances that allowed us to grow more food for, you know, more people. And like it helped a lot of people. It brought a lot of them out of, you know, food poverty. But like, I mean, a lot of reasons why that happened is we started mining fertilizer. That's what we did. And you can see it in the 60s and the 70s. The amount of phosphate rock that we've been extracting has just gone through the roof. And so every year we need to extract and mine and process this much phosphate rock every year. So that's what I'm talking about when I'm saying it's not sustainable, you know, unless you have unlimited phosphate rock. The other issue with phosphorus mining is there's a byproduct to the processing. I think it's for every like, I don't know what the unit is, but for every 1 phosphorus fertilizer, you have 5 units of phosphogypsum, which is slightly radioactive. So you can't use it as like a building material, like for road beds or anything. And you really just pile it up. And this is actually a huge issue. Again, long-term, it runs off into the ocean, and then you're putting too much phosphorus in the ocean, and then you end up leading into like anoxic cycles in the ocean. There's a professor, Andy Watson, out in the UK who's done work on this, and like we're talking long term, like 100, 500 years, but if you get too much phosphorus in the ocean over, you know, 500, or if you get too much phosphorus in, then you're going to end up with more anoxia in the ocean, which is real bad. And I think it's been linked to like mass extinctions. So anyways, for every 1 of this we mine, we get 5 of phosphogypsum, which just ends up in a pile outside, exposed to rain. And so then you get runoff. And we can use some Google Earth. I can show you some of that. So in Florida, let's see if this, okay, no, that's obviously not, oh yeah, it is Florida, okay. So this is a phosphorus mine. This is actually a stack of phosphogypsum right here, see this? And that's a water pool on top. And I don't know if you saw in the news in the last 5 years, actually right now, they're pumping all this wastewater into Tampa Bay, and it's filled with phosphorus, and it's gonna damage the ecosystem there big time, because like some dam they had, like maybe one of these retention ponds, see, they're pumping one of these out because this dam here is failing. And then another time there's a sinkhole recently, like 5 years ago, and it went right down to the groundwater table into like the karst, you know, limestone systems, and so it's just draining this shit into the I'm sorry, it's not shit, it's phosphorus, into the groundwater. So here's a phosphorus processing plant. Here is, so you can see them littered all over Florida. Okay, this, I'm not sure where it is, but at some point this, okay. And by the way, I'm not saying that mining is bad. You know, it's actually necessary. But what I'm saying is, if we mine an atom of phosphorus, we should use it 2 or 3 times before we lose it to, you know, the environment, essentially. So like we go through so much effort to mine anything, copper, aluminum, phosphorus, nitrogen, let's use it twice before we lose it, you know? That's all I'm arguing, you know, because we go through a lot of effort. Here's one over in Africa, actually Western Sahara. And I'm not going to spend too much more time on this part of it, because I'm sure people want to learn about backyard composting. So yeah, here's a phosphorus mine. See this line right here? This line going across? So that, if we zoom all the way in, you can see what that is. All the way in. And what this is it is a conveyor belt. Let's see if that will resolve. All right, get that out of the way. Okay, maybe it doesn't resolve, but yeah, that's a conveyor belt that brings phosphate rock from the mine over here all the way over here. And if we check it, it's 61 miles long. This is, and like, so, you know, that obviously doesn't take any energy to run, you know, it's only a 60-mile long conveyor belt. Here's one of the phosphorus mines. This is the phosphogypsum I'm talking about. It's just laying out there. And this mine, you know, it's very productive, and it's also in disputed land. Like Morocco claims Western Sahara, and but like the Western Saharan people, I don't know, they get killed over it or something. You know, a minor inconvenience, so that we can waste food. But and then here's the port where they take it out. Okay, and like the same is for potassium. So potassium, it's mined out of, you know, Canada quite a bit. Here's like it's mined underground. Here's like a potassium salt mine. And this whole area, you can see a bunch of them are around, like there. Yeah, all over. And then let's see, ammonia. So ammonia uses natural gas to extract it out of the atmosphere with the Haber-Bosch process. Here's a facility that extracts it out. It's right on the Mississippi. Oh man, if you ever driven down the Mississippi, there's fertilizer mines up the wazoo, or fertilizer receiving ports, because and so here's in Trinidad and Tobago. So there's a ton of natural gas under Trinidad and Tobago. So they produce a lot of natural ammonia here. So ammonia, it's H3, 4. So to get the hydrogens, so they take nitrogen that's in the atmosphere, N2, and they put hydrogens on that nitrogen, and they pull those hydrogens from methane, CH4. So that's the deal with that. So, you know, at the end of the day, it's all mining. Let's see. I'm gonna give it one more minute. Here's a sinkhole from a potassium mine. Let's see. This one is good. Yeah, so this kind of shows the flow. Again, it's focused on phosphorus, but here's your reserves. This is in millions of tons per year, 17.5. You know, then it becomes fertilizer, there's loss, goes on soil, there's loss. Animal manure comes back, but there's loss. It becomes a crop losses, harvested crop loss, becomes food. So of the original 14.9 that goes into fertilizer, 3.5 of that becomes food. So all that other phosphorus was lost. So it's inefficient, or it's still in the soil. Sometimes it's locked in the soil, and there is research going on how to like unlock that. And then it ends up in humans, and then the humans excrete, and then it goes to the waters, essentially, and very little gets reused. And like here we are, Black Earth right here, we're at 1.2. So, you know, like the scale of what we can do, like let's say we were able to recycle all food scraps, 1.2. So then that's 1.2 going back here. You know, it doesn't solve the problem, but it's something, and it's something that we can do at home. That's a nice thing about food waste composting is it's something that we can do at home. It's very easy. In Massachusetts, like we're in 90 towns, and it's anywhere from like $2 to $4 a week. And if you do that and you recycle, you basically don't have much trash left. You don't even have to put your trash out every week because all that's left is just plastic bags. All right, so that was a half hour on that. I'm not going to spend any more time on that. Yeah. So does anyone want, maybe we could do some questions now, and then I still want to talk about how to compost at home.
Nothing in the Q&A right now. If anybody has a question, please do, for Andrew, please do drop it in. But yeah, I would say, you know, let's get going on the composting at home section, and, you know, we'll see if more questions kind of come up.
Cool. Yeah, so composting in your backyard. I am going to do another screen share, and I'm going to use the whiteboard. Okay, I'm going to pull my mouse out so it's easier to use. So I have this method called the bread oven method. And it's like basically an at-home bioreactor made out of leaves that you're able to use to make compost. The layer method is a real thing. I think most people do it wrong, but it can work. The downside to it is you have to flip it a lot. Hold on one second. I don't know if you can see, but I'm in my car. It's getting a little warm. All right. There we go. So I'm at the compost site right now. I can give you guys a tour of it later. But so the problem with the bread oven method is that you have to flip it, which is a pain in the butt, and that makes it hard. It's a barrier to entry, or it's a barrier to practice. And so then people don't end up doing it, or they're like, I'm not going to try that. The other problem with the layer method is that people just put the food right on top. So, or like their greens. So like, let's say here's your browns, right? What I see people doing is they put the greens on top and then they walk away. You know, maybe they sprinkle some browns on it. But what happens is you have the sun. And what the sun is doing is it's drying out your greens. So your greens actually become browns because if it's grass, like if you ever seen grass in the sun, it turns from green to brown. And what's happened is the nitrogen is like bleached out of it. And you've also lost your moisture. And moisture is your number one most important thing with composting, hands down. And that's because, so we're just trying to zoom in on a piece of carbon. Okay, we're way in there, like think microbe scale. And so there's a film of water around that carbon. And the microbes actually live inside that film. And if this piece of carbon is dry, then the microbes are going to go into stasis and they're not going to live. And microbes are doing the work. So water is critical to composting because it's done by microbes. And same with fungi. They are more drought resistant, but at the end of the day, they need moisture. And So what are the microbes doing? They are eating the carbon. The carbon is the fuel. And when I talk about carbon, I'm talking about browns. I'm talking about wood chips, sticks, leaves, brown grass, horse manure, wood shavings. It could be newspaper, because newspaper is made of trees. So any of those things, there is sugars and fats in there, and that's essentially fuel. And the microbes are consuming that and burning that fuel. And they're actually doing the same type of respiration that us humans do. They breathe in oxygen and they consume carbon materials, so sugars. So I don't need to explain that. It's cellular respiration. And they then are able to use that energy to build new cells and to power themselves. And so byproduct of that is heat. And that is where the heat in composting comes from. Like it's, if you're out, let's say, anyways, when you eat food, your belly warms up. And that's because there's you're generating heat. You're making cellular respiration happen. So in the compost pile, we want that microbial activity to be happening inside, because then that heat gets trapped and the heat builds up, and that's how you get your temperatures. So if it's happening up here, then that heat's escaping. And so that's another downside to the layer method, is you're not really holding on to the heat. And back to moisture being the most important thing. So when those greens dry out and they become browns, and then you come and you put your next brown and you put your next green on top, essentially you've buried dry. You're just burying dry. And so you're not really helping yourself. And you think, oh, well, it's getting wet, right? Well, it's kind of like it's shedding water too. All right, so that's my problems with the layer method. So let me show you the bread oven method. So the bread oven method, step one, in the fall, you save every single leaf on your property and you make a big carbon stockpile. You do not want leaves to leave your property. You will use all of them. And if you need more, there's this time of the year where leaves suddenly appear conveniently in bags on the sidewalk. And so you can go and collect those and increase your carbon stockpile. So you got your carbon stockpile over here. And then, so that's what you're drawing from. And then after that, you have your compost pile. So you're going to make a pile initially that is 5 feet tall and 5 feet wide. All right. And what will happen when you make that 5 feet tall, it's going to shrink down to 3 or 4, probably 4. So let's say, so 5 feet tall initial, and then 4 foot, like never less than 4. Okay, I don't know if I can move these things around. There we go. 5 feet tall initially. All right, we're gonna try that one again. 5 feet tall initial. Okay. So what you do is let's just say, so greens, let's talk about greens for a minute. What are your greens? Food scraps are green. Green grass is a green. Weeds that you pick out of your garden are a green. Old are green. A dead fish is a green. Dog poop is a green. Cat poop is a green. Dead roadkill is a green. All these things are green. Now, I'm not telling you to put them into your compost pile, but I'm saying that they all work as greens. There's a myth that, hey, Peter. Hey.
Howdy.
Hey, I'm doing a talk right now.
Huh?
I'm doing a talk right now.
Oh, good for you.
Thanks. So all these things you can compost. Like the reason people think that you can't compost meat is because boards of health have discouraged this over all the years because people compost in their backyards, it's hard for them to manage it and they end up getting rodents. And that's the biggest problem with backyard composting. So that's why boards of health have discouraged meat, dairy, cheese, and all that to go into composting. And so then people believe that you can't compost it, but in fact you can. And when it comes to stuff like, you know, I don't want to say you can compost dog poop in your backyard. I don't know if that's legal, but so that can have pathogens in it, and so you wouldn't want to use that on your vegetables. You wouldn't want to use it on the surface. You might want to use any questionable compost. You can kind of bury it below the surface. You could give it to perennials. I think meat maybe just has more pathogens, but like lettuce can have pathogens too. And vegetables can have pathogens that can proliferate. So those are your greens. And so when I'm talking about greens, it can be anything. I'm kind of focusing on food scraps first. All right, so once a week, you come in and you open a door in the side. I like a pitchfork. That's my favorite tool. Shovels are kind of hard. Pitchforks go in nice and you can pull it out. That's the best tool for this, hands down. So you open a door. You put your greens inside in the middle, okay? And then you close your door. You put the stuff back and maybe put a little extra over the door and you walk away. And then you come back a week later and you open that door and you put in more greens, all right? And then you close that door and you come back a week later. And after a month of doing this, you end up seeing that it's going to be turning black inside and it's going to be moist and it's going to be heating up. And then there might even be an odor, but that's okay. So what you're doing is you're producing a core inside and that core is active. There's microbes, they're eating. Yeah, in like a half hour. They're eating and you now have an active core. And so now you're making compost. And what's going to happen is the leaves from all around are going to start getting into that core and they're going to start breaking down. and you're going to see that your pile is shrinking. And so what you want to do then is put more leaves on top to keep your height at 4 feet. And that's where your carbon stockpile comes in. So you'll see it, your pile is going to start to shrink, and it will shrink and continue to shrink. And so basically you've made yourself a bioreactor that can handle a green, whether it's food scraps or any of the other greens we mentioned. And so let's just dissect for a second why this works. I'm going to start with animals, because hands down, animals is the most important thing. So first of all, I don't suggest pallets, because when you have a pallet, you can't walk around your whole pile and inspect it, because what you're looking for are holes where rodents might have burrowed in. So if you ever see rodents burrowing in, then you need to stop putting food in for like a month or two. You do not want rodents at all. So with pallets, there's a lot of holes and spaces where they can get in, and you won't realize. So why else does this work for rodents? So can you see my mouse, Amelia?
Yeah.
Okay, so all around the pile where you're not opening that door. So by the way, the door, you always open the same door every time. So all around the rest of it, like that material hasn't moved in months, and any odors, so air, as this thing warms up, fresh air comes in like this, and then warmer air goes up like that. And so for one, the odorous air that would let an animal know that that there's food there is going out the top. Okay, so you got the right airflow where they're not even going to smell it, because their animals are down here. You know, they're sniffing around the side, and so you got air going in. So you got your airflow in the right direction. The other thing is that this brown material hasn't moved for months, and so it actually acts as a filter, a biofilter, because microbial population has built up in here, and odors are actually food. And so the odors get absorbed into the film of water, and they get eaten as they leave the top. And so the only way, the place where you're disturbing the door, that's where some odors can come out. But again, that's also where it's loosest. So air is going to be flowing in there. But that's why you want to protect your door the most. And that's why I suggest putting extra over the door. And so if you can keep animals like in the dark as to what, you know, nefarious activity you're doing here in this pile, you're going to be just fine. And you can throw a lobster in there, you can throw meat in there all day long. Not all day long, sorry, once a week. You only want to open it up once a week. And that's because like during the intervening time, the temperature rises, because every time you open that up, the temperature drops. And so during the in-between week, that's when the temperature rises, and that's when the breakdown really happens. So the other reason this works is because you're putting the greens right into the middle. So you're taking that moisture and you're putting it right in the middle and where it needs to be. You're not losing it. And you're putting the food right in there so the sun's not getting it, and you'll never need to water the pile. So that's why it works. A couple tips. So you want to use your nose and your eyes. Every time you open the pile, if it seems wet in there, and if it like really stinks, like if it looks like sloppy and wet in there, then you're putting too much moisture in. So what you can do is either put less greens in, or you can put more, like you could actually put some leaves in, like directly in there. Or if you have sawdust, not too much, but if you have some sawdust or other like absorbent brown, you can put that in there too. And like each time you're adding stuff, you kind of stir it up, and you get the leaves around to like mix in, you know. And then you're putting more leaves on top because the pile's shrinking. So to start, I would start with very easy greens. Like until you get the hang of it, I'd start with greens that aren't attractive to rodents. And you can find lists online, like people have all kinds of resources for backyard composting. You want to, no cheese, no bread, coffee grounds, yes. Vegetable trimmings, yes. Tea bags, yes. So you can squeeze the tea bags out, and that can help control moisture. And same concept with your green bin. Your green bin is going to get nasty if you put too much moisture in. It's all about moisture control. So, squeeze your tea bags out before putting it into your curbside green bin that we would collect. Are there any questions right now?
Not seeing any in the Q&A so far.
Okay. Let's see. Okay, so another thing we can talk about is where you want to place this compost pile in your yard. So you could potentially never harvest compost from this, and you could just always add stuff into it and never harvest from it. And because some people don't need it. And so what I suggest for you there is put it in a place that is near some trees. So not near the trunk of a tree. Let's say, I'm running out of room, but let's say your tree's over here. Now we're going 3D. This tree's not floating. But you don't want to put it near the trunk because that's where like the large roots are. You want to put it on near the drip line where the feeder roots are. So, the tree has big roots and they get smaller and eventually they become feeder roots. And these feeder roots, they will come up underneath and they will suck the nutrients right out of that pile. And so you never need to take compost out. And this tree is gonna get huge and benefit so much from the placement of your compost pile right there. I had some arborvitaes at my mom's house that were like bent over. And then when I put a compost pile near them, after a year, they were standing up straight and they were growing excellent. So it's real. It is a real thing.
So it sounds like kind of a cool way to do sort of a, if you don't want to use compost in your garden, if you have, trees you want to get larger or like, fruit trees in your yard, something like that, you can sort of strategically basically give them a big carbon and green source such that they can, because they can detect where, where nutrients are over time that they can basically draw off of.
Yes, exactly. And this is where I would suggest putting your dog poop compost pile. You can have a separate one, and this will act as a bioreactor that will consume your dog poop. I don't know if it's legal, but I know it's stupid to put poop in the trash to go to the landfill, but I think that might be the only option we have. I think the big concern is just runoff. But if you have a bioreactor that gets hot and sheds and shields from runoff, because you don't want that dog poop runoff to end up in surface water, I don't see the problem with it. Again, I don't know if it's legal, but it's smart. and then you could have another compost pile that you actually use for your garden, and that's where your food scraps go. And like I said, with all these compost piles in your yard, you're gonna need a lot of leaves, and that's fine. Something about leaves, let's see. So modern landscaping aesthetics. So they say, let's take all the leaves off of the property every year. So what are we doing when that happens? So leaves contain calcium, phosphorus. They contain a whole slew of nutrients. They're not as rich in nitrogen, but yeah, there's nitrogen in there. There's a whole slew of immobile nutrients that are contained in those leaves. And so the trees during the growing season mine those nutrients from your soil, and they put those nutrients into the leaves. And then when the leaves fall on the ground and we extract them from the property, you are practicing extractive mining on your property. And then we come back in our infinite human wisdom and we spray Miracle-Gro, which is just mined nitrogen, phosphorus, and potassium on your soil, and we call it good, but you're depleting all the other nutrients. There's like 50 or 80, there's a lot of micronutrients, and you're mining them out of your soil, and then we wonder why our trees die and why limbs are falling off and such. Like, pretty obvious. But anyways, that's modern landscaping aesthetic. And yeah, it will, I don't know. It's pretty stupid. Bark mulch comes back. People put that back on. It's wood. There's nutrients in there, but there's not enough nitrogen to break down those nutrients. They kind of stay locked in. And it's a different set of nutrients too. The nutrient profile on leaves is different than the nutrient profile on wood chips. So it's not the same thing. And most people have their bark mulch raked away anyways, which is crazy. So let's see. So you can actually feed your trees with this system.
So one thing that you got me thinking about, just thinking about, modern landscaping aesthetics. I happen to, do similar to you do, and I have an area where I put all of my leaves every year because I make a couple things out of them. I use them as, carbon input for my compost, and then I also make leaf mulch for making soilless potting media at home. So mine go to kind of two purposes, and yeah, I keep all of them and I take my neighbors too because I can never get enough. But
Yep.
It sounds sort of like you're also recommending that a thing that people could do that's really pretty easy, and this is something I used to hear recommended, but for some of if you have something that resembles a lawn, and a lot of people, I have one and I'm trying to convert the entire thing to a garden, and just haven't gotten there yet. But if you have a lawn, you have to deal with a lawn. A lot of what I had heard recommended is, the right around when you've got the last bunch of leaves of the season, and also the last your last mow of the season before everything goes dormant around here in like late October, you can just not bag it. You can just let it mulch back in. And then it's got the winter to, it's not everything, but it's got the winter to rot over. You're giving your land something back.
Yep. So I was under that. So I agree with that. I don't think you want to leave, if you want lawn, you don't want to leave the leaves on the lawn, I don't think, because it will kill the lawn. I think every tree in your property should have like a 10 to 15 foot radius of leaves and no lawn around it, because again, those feeder roots are coming up and they're competing with the grass roots for oxygen and nutrients. And so again, you're like, you're putting your tree at a disadvantage. So I'd say 10 to 15 feet around each tree should be like a natural environment. But so talking with one of my tree care friends, he said that just leaving the leaves can actually be negative because the way that like suburban leaves, they mat when they fall, especially like Norway maples. And it's not like the mix of leaves that you'd find in a forest, like the mix of leaves and sticks that you'd find in the forest. So they can end up matting and they can end up like suffocating underneath. So they he was saying to get the leaves chopped up, but then that involves like mechanical, gas powered motor or whatever, which might work, or it does work, but you might not want to go there. So one solution I thought of is, and like this is another problem, brush and sticks. Like, what do we do with that? Oh, we have to send it to the town compost yard where they pay to grind it up with a 1,000 horsepower diesel motor. I had this idea where in the fall, before the leaves fall, you get the children to break the sticks into littler sticks, and you throw those down on your like forest area, and then when the leaves fall, those leaves are then like lofted a bit by the sticks, and like it kind of makes a more diverse environment. And if you do that year after year, like sticks leaves, I think that would be a productive environment. But I haven't proved that. It's just something I'm doing at home. But so I am for leaving the leaf, and there's a lot of resources on that. I think Connecticut State has some good resources on leaving the leaf, and maybe if you look into it, you could see more about like the matting and if that's a real issue or not. And then, there's also the issue with weed seeds. So like maples drop the samaras, and or they're seedlings. And another thing, so then that's annoying because then you have to weed them. But at least if it's a leaf mulch, you can weed them out pretty easy because they're not like in the soil, a hardened soil. They're in like a loose leaf mulch, so you can weed them out like that. Or another thing I did was take all the leaves, put them in my carbon stockpile, and then I let the samaras germinate like in the spring, and then I like roll them over, and then all those seedlings die, and then like the next layer kind of germinates. So you can do that a few times. So you can actually get them to pre-germinate, and then you spread that leaf mulch out like end of spring or something like that. Yeah.
Yeah, one thing I've been doing with brush with sticks over the years is I make biochar out of it. Which is just, I was just like, it's just like, I was like, well, I have a hose and I have a fire pit and I have a bunch of brush. I don't want to, I don't have any space to store it anymore. Yeah, I make biochar, and then, which is again is a component of soilless potting media, or mix in with your compost. And then the other thing that so biochar, and then the other thing that I do with my garden beds, which is not super common, but it's pretty easy with a raised bed structure, is I use this German permaculture technique called hugels, or hugel, which is German for hill. And so, it's I'm sure you're familiar with it, but it's, you basically take a bunch of, so you basically, like, you can do this on a grand scale. We made them 4 foot tall at my dad's house up in Essex. And, we just used a tractor to cover it with clean fill and compost from the yard. And those will last for, 20, 30 years. But at my house, I'm experimenting with mini hugels. So lots of, 2 to, maybe 1 to 4 or 5 inch diameter small logs and sticks that are like half rotting. And that's the base of that you cut out the sod, and then the base of your bed is that. And then you cover that with compost and loam and, whatever you want for your soil mix. And it's nice because it helps with water retention. And then you get a lot of mycelium already, like, you get that network already in, like already in the, I guess, inherently in the bed that you're going for, which helps a lot of garden plants.
Yeah. Wood is great in the soil, and like a lot of people will complain, like they get compost, they're like, oh, there's sticks and wood chips. But what those are, especially if they've been through a compost pile is they've been humidified and darkened, and there's microbes all over them, and they're actually tiny space pods that are carrying fungi and bacteria, and like the wood is food that they can live off of, and so it ends up in your soil as like, you know, a tiny colony of fungi and bacterium. So that is like, wood's good. I like that hugel method. That's interesting. But at some point, if you stop building beds, then you do need to do something with your wood. And the like before the leaves fall works. You know, and of course, if you don't have any children, then you have to break the sticks up yourself.
Yeah, I determined in the absence of having a bunch of kids, of finding the neighborhood kids to do it, it was easier to just put them in a pile and burn them. And then, you know, with biochar, you just stop it before it hits ash, and you know, there's a myriad of different ways to you know, trample it into some usable size pieces. But it's an effective vermiculite substitute. Is in
Cool.
in a soilless pot, in a homemade soilless potting media, which is really nice. So
Cool.
yeah. So okay. I'm noticing we don't have anything in the Q&A, but everyone, you know, it's clearly good and interesting conversation. Yeah, I guess I would say to folks that are watching, you know, if there's any questions you've got, please do ask them. We're a bit past 3 o'clock, but we still got a little time. Is there anything else that you kind of wanted to hit on, Andrew, that you feel like you haven't gotten to yet?
No, I mean, that I can talk about a lot, and I have, if I seem kind of cynical today, it's just because I'm tired. We're in the middle of our season, and you know, it's Earth Day or Earth Week or whatever, and I don't know, just like out there looking at traffic and everything that we do as humans, it just seems asinine. And yeah, so I don't know, feeling cynical this week, but
Yeah, I hear that. I try to get myself away from the cynicism by I have, there's, you know, there's 4 pots of leeks, and they unfortunately won't plant themselves. So I just, you know, there's really nothing warms my, this is gonna sound ridiculous, but it's true. Nothing warms my heart like getting my hands into a bunch of dirt. So that's more or less how I, you know, maintain my sanity in a world that you know, sometimes seems a little sharp edged.
yeah.
But the other thing that I would add is, you know, if we don't have any questions, and you know, this is something that I was thinking of. This is the prime season for you guys. You know, we can give everyone back the next 20 minutes. And you know, and this will, and you know, this talk this recording will go online for, you know, everyone to be informed by. It's a fantastic guide in how to, you know, in this particular method of how to start backyard composting if folks don't yet live in a community that, you know, that is serviced by Black Earth or another service that does compost pickup, which is awesome.
Yeah. Yeah, we try to make it easy. Like, if you can't do the backyard pile, because like I can't even do a backyard pile because I don't have time. You know, it is a lot of work. So, and that's part of the problem with like backyard composting is people want to do it, and then they can't do the work to manage it or to monitor for animals. And you know, that's why boards of health say don't put meat in it. Like, they're just trying to like provide guidelines that are going to lead to success, because at the end of the day, if you're putting food in the backyard, then you are feeding the animals, and so then you are going to grow a rodent population, which, you know, with climate change and the warming of New England, you're going to have more rodents. And there's already been a boom of rodents in the area, in, you know, eastern Massachusetts. You know, and another thing,
The rat hordes in Alston are particularly terrifying.
yeah, and like another thing to think about is also like backyard gardening. Like, your tomato plant that you're not managing and it's just dropping fruit, that is attracting rodents. And so you need to, like, if you're going to grow plants, you need to manage them and monitor for rodents and do your cleanup and do your harvest properly, or else you are going to have rodent problems. So that's something to think about.
Yeah. Yeah, agreed. Well, thanks so much, Andrew. This was a really informative talk. I feel newly reinvigorated to go pitchfork at my reasonably the reasonably mature side of my own compost pile after this.
Yeah.
And everyone's saying thank you. And yeah, this has been awesome. It's been super informative. And yeah, thanks. I know it's a really busy time for you guys. This is like peak season, everybody's getting excited. So really appreciate you spending, over an hour of your Friday talking to us about, this on a global scale.
Yep. And I'll just pitch real quick. So we sell compost, a soil blend, we sell raised beds, we deliver them to your home. The raised beds are a kit that it's 4 walls and screws, and you can put it together yourself, and we deliver soil with it, and you can fill it yourself. It takes, a half hour to build and 2 hours to fill with 2 people. And we deliver vegetable starts with them. The vegetable starts we have grown at Cedar Rock Gardens in Gloucester. If you've never been there, you should. They grow excellent vegetables, and it's a beautiful spot. And they're a wealth of information. So our vegetable starts, we're doing leafy greens, 4 leeks, cilantro, parsley, 2 heads of lettuce. And like we focused it towards greens because greens are really a great way to reduce your carbon footprint, because greens at the grocery store have a short shelf life and they need a lot of refrigeration and it's a quick transportation. So it's a high fuel cost between the refrigeration and transportation to get them there, and then high waste because they go bad and people can't deal with like slightly wilted greens at the grocery store. So doing greens in your backyard has the biggest impacts compared to like growing broccoli, for example. Broccoli gets real big in your garden, and if all you have is a 4x8, you only gonna grow a couple heads of broccoli, and they're probably gonna get destroyed by caterpillars. So like, don't do that. Grow a bunch of greens. If you've ever heard of the technique called cut and come again, look it up, and that's a great way to do greens, because you can literally go outside and cut greens every single night of the summer into, as long as you have greens, you can do season extension, and you can have, and that's awesome. That's getting nutrients into your family, which is what you're trying to do at the end of the day. The nutrients are in the soil and you are trying to get them into your body. We're talking zinc, copper, molybdenum, all these micronutrients that your body relies on, iron. It uses these to fuel itself, cobalt, and it's in the soil, and it gets into your body through dark leafy greens. Parsley is a great one. That's a great source of zinc. And, when you're talking about, the COVID times, we're trying to keep ourselves healthy, and zinc is great for your immune system. So why not have a source of it out back? So that's why our vegetable start kit, there's 21 plants for $21 or something, and we deliver it with your soil. And it's really just to, give new gardeners an idea about what to do. And we also have an automatic watering kit, which hooks up to your hose, that can help you if you need that help. Yeah, and we deliver all over. So
Awesome.
Yep.
Lots of things to do as we come into the warmer season.
Greens. Grow greens in your backyard.
Yep. Yeah, I just got mine out there, so now's the time.
Cool.
All right. Well, everyone have a great rest of the afternoon and the weekend. Thank you again, Andrew. And and this closes our Sustainability at Broad's first Earth Week. We hope you all had a great time at the events.